Hi there, this is Mr. Thill coming to you with another math video. In today's video, we're going to continue our discussion from my last video, and we're going to keep on talking about the properties of multiplication. Now, last time out, I discussed the commutative property of multiplication. This time, we're going to be discussing the associative property of multiplication. Now, just a reminder, when we talk about properties of multiplication, we're basically talking about rules or laws that can be applied to any multiplication problem and still be true. So last time we mentioned commutative property, which lets you change your factors around and still get the same product. Today, the associative property is actually a pretty similar rule or law. So associative property basically means that when you have a multiplication problem, the grouping of your factors does not matter. You'll get the same product as long as it's just straight multiplication. So I'm going to show you this concept mathematically and visually. To be honest, I think that visuals work best at underlining why associative property works, but I'll show you both ways. So one thing to remember here as I build the problems for you is that when you see parentheses in a math problem, the parentheses need to go first. You have to resolve them before you can resolve anything else. That's tied into something called the order of operations, which I'm not going to go too in depth with because I don't want to overwhelm you with information. But just remember, when you see parentheses, you solve those first before you do the rest of the problem. So here's an example problem. I have 3 times 4 marked off by parentheses multiplied by 2. So I solve this part first. 3 times 4 is going to be 12. 12 times 2 is going to be 24. So the product is 24. Okay, now associative property says that I can change my groupings around in my problem and still get the same product. So I can actually take this problem and change it into 3 times 4 times 2. And it should still be 24. So notice all I did here was just take my grouping, my parentheses, and just move it over to another group of factors. 4 times 2 is 8. Remember, parentheses always go first. 8 times 3 is also going to be 24. So far, so good. I changed my groupings. My product was the same. I can also take it and change the order of the factors and also the groupings. So I could rewrite this as 3 times 2 times 4. So now I've taken my 2 and switched it with 4, and then grouped my 3 and my 2 together. Now, according to the associative property, this should still be 24. Let's see. 3 times 2 is 6. Remember, always do parentheses first. Times 4 is going to be. So now, when you look at each of these problems, we can see that the same factors appear each time. So we can see that I have a 3 in each one. I have a 4 in each one. And I have a 2 in each one. And as a result, my product is always the same. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at this visually. So when I'm building an array to match these grouping problems, I will build an array to show the parentheses first, and then I will copy the array however many times the problem tells me to do. So for example, here I'm going to build 3 groups of 4. So 3 groups of 4. So this array matches my parentheses. Okay, now since it tells me to multiply that by 2, I'm going to go ahead and copy this array so that I have 2 of that array. Now, according to the property, when I count it, it should be 24. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. Product is still going to be 20. Okay. Now, if this property is true, then when I build the arrays to match this problem right here, I still have 24 total objects. So in this one, my parenthetical grouping is 4 times 2. So 4 groups of 2. 1, 2, 2 groups of 2, 3 groups of 2, and 4 groups of 2. Now this formula is asking me to multiply that by 3. So I'm going to go ahead and take this array that shows 4 times 2, and I'm going to clone it so I have 3. So if associative property is true, then all I've done here is change my grouping. My product should still be the same. Let's double check. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. I still have 24. Okay, let's go ahead and do the last one here to further prove that the associative property is true, and then we'll wrap the video up. So in this one, it says I have a grouping of 3 times 2. I'm going to show that 4 times. So let's build our 3 groups of 2. So 3 groups of 2. And then I'm going to go ahead and clone that so I have 4 of them, because I'm multiplying that array by 4. Okay, so once again, I've just changed the grouping of my factors, but my product should still be 24. Let's count to make sure. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. And as we predicted, based on the associative property, my product is still 24. Which means that for each of these examples that we built, the product has not changed. So once again, in a nutshell, associative property means that when you're looking at multiplication, specifically it would be like 3-digit multiplication or more, the grouping of the factors does not matter. As long as it's all multiplication, your product will still remain the same. Until next time, this is Mr. Thill.